In this video, I wanted to see if I could beat a Pokemon Emerald Trashlocke. What's a Trashlocke, you may ask? Well, a Trashlocke is a ROM hack created by Pokemon Challenges that removes every single decent encounter in the Hoenn region. Trying to get through this difficult game with only the worst Pokemon then is not going to be easy, especially because under my hardcore Nuzlocke rules, if a Pokemon faints, it's considered dead and must be released. I can also only catch the first encounter in each area. The rest of the rules are on screen now and in the description. Let's go see if our trash Pokemon can carry us through this difficult Nuzlocke. So first things first, after being thrown out of the moving van, we've got to pick our starter. Yikes, these Hoenn starters have really had a downgrade, haven't they? The good thing about these new group of starters, at least, is that they're all equally awful, meaning it doesn't make a huge difference to who I pick here. I decided to start with Beagle the Goldeen, as I've never actually used a Goldeen in any of my Nuzlockes before. I'm now free to catch my first batch of early game encounters, and for some reason, the first 3 routes in this ROM hack have broken and haven't had their encounters changed. This isn't an issue, however, because I can just catch what I find and then using the power of magic, change these encounters into what they should be. So first up on Route 101, I catch a Sentret I name Bulldog. On Route 102, I find a Rattata I name Poodle, and on Route 103, I find a Ladybur I name Collie. Obviously, Bulldog and Collie are pretty bad, but I'm surprised Rattata was left in the game. Like, Raticates can be surprisingly strong, especially when they have guts. Strange, but I'm not going to complain. Next, I head on to Route 104 and find a Sandshrew I name Husky. Husky's move pool is atrocious, but I suspect he'll still be useful for a certain electric gym leader down the line. Carrying on, I make it to Petalburg Woods, where I find a Spinarak I name Boxer. I can then make my way through Rustboro City, and on Route 116, I can find a Ditto I name Terrier. I have no idea where a Ditto might be useful, but at least it's got more potential than Spinarak. That just leaves one more encounter to get, so in Rust Turf Tunnel, I find a Togepi I name Doberman. Doberman actually has a pretty decent move pool, so he'll be a useful support Pokemon. Bulldog is then able to evolve into a slightly less useless Thurret, and with that it's time for our first gym battle of the run. Our first gym challenge is against Roxy and her rock types, and you might be wondering how I'm planning to get through this fight with only normal type moves. Well, the only reason I've got any hope at getting through this fight is thanks to Doberman. Doberman has the move Charm, which lowers Roxy's Pokemon's attack by 2 stages. That means I only need to get off 3 charms before Roxy's Pokemon basically do no damage. Neutering Roxy's Pokemon like this allows me to spam Metronome, which selects a random move for Doberman to attack with. Because of Geodude's 4x weakness to grass and water, and its rubbish special defense, I just have to spam Metronomes until eventually I get an attack which KOs the stupid rock face. Roxy's second Geodude is slightly more annoying because it gets a crit, bringing Doberman really low. Eventually though, my Charm Metronome plan works, and the second rock goes down. All that leaves to Roxy is Nose Pass, and unfortunately, while I still am able to bring the Nose Pass down to -6 with Charms, Metronome does eventually run out of PP. This means Doberman really can't hurt the ugly looking nose, and thanks to Block, I can't switch out. This causes the first death of the run, as Doberman is slowly KO'd by Nose Pass. Rest in peace, Doberman. It's only thanks to you we have a hope of winning this fight. Next, I send in Bulldog, who is able to do some good damage with Fury Swipes. This probably would have been enough to take down the Nose Pass, but Bulldog can't quite pull off the KO because Roxy has 2 Super Potions. This does mean I eventually lose my Thurret. These sacrifices have been worth it though, because Poodle is then able to come in and finish off the nose, winning us our first gym badge of the run. It sucks to lose 2 Pokemon already, but breaking through Roxy's defenses were never going to be easy, so I'm just happy we made it through with only 2 deaths. Moving on from Roxy, we're able to jump into Mr. Briney's boat, and thankfully he doesn't murder us in international waters. Surviving that perilous trip means we make it to Dewford Town, where inside Granite Cave, we're able to find our next encounter. This next encounter is a Dunsparce I name Corgi. Dunsparces aren't awful, as they can provide useful support with Yawns, so I'm happy to add Corgi to my roster of Pokemon. That's actually the only interesting encounter I get before our next gym battle, meaning it's time to challenge Brawly and his fighting types. Brawly's Pokemon all know Bulk Up, which means this fight could get scary fast. Thankfully, I do have a counter to Brawly's Pokemon, my starter Beagle, who knows the move Peck. Peck does enough damage to where Beagle only has to take a seismic toss before bringing down the Machop. Second is Meditite, whose only attacking move is Focus Punch. This means I can just keep attacking, and Meditite can never get off a hit, meaning Beagle can pick up another 3 KO. Last the Brawly is Makuhita, who might actually be an issue. Not only does this punching bag also have bulk up, it's holding a citrus berry and is decently bulky. This is going to make KOing this stupid thing quickly difficult, especially because after getting off 2 pecks, Beagle is brought into the red, and basically all the damage Beagle did is healed by a berry. Thankfully, I've got Collie in the back, who has evolved into a Ledian, which is 4 times resistant to fighting attacks. This means I can spam Growl as Makuhita goes to bulk ups. This eventually means the Makuhita is put down to -6 attack, and because his defense is still a +6, he won't go for any more bulk ups. That's perfect because I can then switch into Boxer, who also 4 times resists Makuhita's attacks. I can then safely spam Poison Stings until the punching bag is poisoned, and then stall until it goes down. That gym wasn't too bad, honestly. I just had the perfect Pokemon to handle Brawly's team. Second gym badge acquired. Before we carry on with the rest of the run, I would like to do some shameless self-plugging. So remember to leave a like on the video if you've been enjoying so far, and subscribe so you never miss a video. I've also got channel memberships available if you really want to go out of your way to support the channel. No pressure though, either by just watching the video, you're supporting me, and I appreciate it. Now that we've won our second gym badge, our new level cap is 24, meaning we can evolve Husky, Boxer, and Poodle. We can then head off to Slateport, where we do get some more encounters, but this game gives you a lot of Pokemon, so I'm only going to be mentioning the Pokemon I actually end up using. Sorry, Meowth. That means we can carry on further north, kick May's ass, before arriving in Marlville City. I feel slightly called out by Pokemon challenges here, like if the game's gonna give me Ice Beam, Thunderbolt, and Flamethrower before the third gym, you're damn right I'm gonna use them. With that, it's time to face off against Watson and his electric types. This is by far one of the hardest gym leaders in Emerald for a number of reasons. Firstly, Voltorb knows self-destruct, which could easily mean the death of any one of my Pokemon. Secondly, Magneton is stupidly bulky without a fire move, which of course I don't have. And thirdly, his Ace Manectric is stupidly fast and hits like a truck. This all means I'm gonna need some real luck to get through this. Thankfully, I do have a plan, however. First, I've got to deal with Voltorb, and I don't want this thing exploding in my face without buying me a drink first, so I hit it with a Yawn from Corgi. I then switch into Husky on a Shockwave. From there, Husky can KO with 2 slashes, good start. Next is Electrike, who isn't super threatening, but any damage this thing manages to get off is going to make the rest of this fight harder. Thankfully, Electrike just keeps spamming Leers, letting Boxer build up damage with Poison Stings. Eventually, I am hit with enough Leers to where I decide to switch, so I send in my Fish, who takes a nasty Shockwave. With the Leers shaken off though, I do feel safe to send Boxer right back in, who takes a second Shockwave. Another Shockwave brings my Spider to 50%, while another Poison Sting does okay damage, but still doesn't get the poison. What's worse, Electrike then crits, leaving Boxer on 4 HP before he's able to bring the Electrike into the red with another attack. Right, I know Watson will heal on the next turn, so I'm safe to switch into Poodle, who are actually one-shots with a Hyper Fang. Wasn't expecting the one-shot there, probably should have done that from the start. Next is Magneton, who is a bit of the problem. I can hit this thing with super effective rock smashes from Poodle and Husky, but they'd probably be left really low by the time the Magneton goes down, and I need them healthy for Manectric. So instead, I have another plan, Terrier. Terrier is able to transform into Magneton, paralyze and confuse the stupid magnet, and then start spamming Sonic Booms. Sonic Booms do a set amount of damage, so they're perfect for getting around Magneton's high defense. This works out perfectly, and eventually the Magneton goes down. All that leaves for Watson is his scary ace, Manectric. I decide it's best to let Terrier go down here to give myself the best chance of victory, but because Manectric keeps spamming Howls, I'm able to confuse and paralyze the Zappy Puppy before Terrier eventually goes down. Rest in peace, you strange pink blob. With Terrier going down, I'm free to send in Poodle, who is now in the perfect position to take down the ace. My Rat is able to spam Hyper Fangs until Manectric goes down. Had to let Terrier go down there, but that fight went pretty much perfectly, and considering how much of the roadblock Watson usually is, I'm really happy with that result. Third gym badge acquired. It's now a bit of a trek to our next gym fight, but I am able to pick up some decent encounters along the way. The first of these encounters is a Machop I named Boston, who I find in Fiery Path. Machops aren't usually amazing, but fighting types are pretty strong, and Boston has okay bulk and is able to hit pretty hard, so no complaints from me. Next, I make it all the way to Meteor Falls before I find another notable encounter, a Sableye I named name Foxhound. Sableye Ghost Dark typing make him a fairly strong pivot. I then remembered to grab the TM for Dig and evolve Boston into Machoke. It's then time for our first real battle against Team Magma, as we have to stop Maxie blowing up a volcano. I'd also like to point out he's standing on top of the volcano he's about to explode, so in terms of plans, it's not great. Luckily this fight isn't exactly difficult because Boston is able to KO the pup, and that just leaves the Camerupt. This stupid thing nearly does cause an issue, as it's able to get off 2 magnitudes into Husky, but Husky takes the hits before KOing with a single dig. Nice. As a reward, on our way down the volcano, we're able to find one more useful encounter, a Castform I name Shepherd. With all of that out of the way, it's time to take on Flannery, and this gym is pretty straightforward. I start with Shepherd, and immediately switch into Husky on a magnitude that doesn't really do a lot. A single dig is then enough for an easy first KO. If you're wondering why I started with Castform, it's because the XP she gets from that first KO lets her level up to 30, giving her access to Weather Ball. Weather Ball is important because after the Slugma goes down to a single dig, I'm going to need to handle the Camerupt. With access to Weather Ball though, I can simply switch into Shepherd, take a tackle, set up the rain so Overheat does next to nothing, and then one shot. Easy. All that leaves for Flannery is Torkoal, who goes down to one more attack. Probably one of the most straightforward gym fights I've had so far, meaning we've won our 4th gym badge. We actually only get one more encounter before it's time to try and win our father's love, a cat turn we find on Route 111, who we name Farm Dog. With that, it's time for Norman and his normal types. I find the Norman fight quite interesting because it's one of those gym battles that's fairly hard if you don't know how to handle it, but if you go in with a plan, it's pretty straightforward. So Norman starts with Spinder, and I start with Foxhound. All of Spinder's attacks are actually normal type, meaning Spinder can't touch Foxhound here. That means it's easy for Foxhound to KO the rabbit with feint attacks with no issues whatsoever. Second is Vigoroth, who can actually hit Foxhound. Because of this, I send in Poodle, who is able to take down the small monkey with Hyper Fangs while only taking weak slashes. Then Norman's Scary Ape comes out, but thanks to its ability Truant, if you play this smart, you'll literally never be hit. I'm able to get off a few digs with Husky, and then I start swapping in and out with Foxhound to get 3 fake outs off, and eventually, once the ape is down to 50%, I can send in Boston, who actually takes a really hard facade before taking the KO with a single low kick. All that leaves to Norman is Lanoon, who once again can't hit Foxhound, so I send him in and then KO with a feint attack. As I said before, this fight isn't that bad if you've got a plan and the right Pokemon to deal with Norman's team. 5th gym badge acquired. It's then a very long walk to our next gym fight, but on the way I'm able to get 2 really strong encounters. In New Moorville, I'm able to find a Voltorb I named Setter. Honestly, I'm shocked Voltorb was left in the game. Like, I know this thing isn't the outright best Pokemon, but I've always found them fairly strong. Next, I'm able to find a Minu I named Greyhound. Greyhound is every bit as useful as Voltorb. It might not hit as hard, but Encore is really broken. With 2 powerful electric types added to my roster, it's time to take on Winona and her flying types. Talk about timing on those encounters. Flying types tend to have a lot of weaknesses, so I'm hoping this gym fight isn't too bad. Winona starts with Swablu, and I start with Setter, who has evolved into an Electrode. A single Thunderbolt is enough for an easy first KO. Second is Altaria, who I need to be careful with because it has Earthquake and Dragon Dance. I'm hoping Shepherd can make quick work of this Cloud Dragon though, so I switch as Altaria gets off the Dragon Dance. The stupid Cloud Dragon then gets off a scary second Dragon Dance as I set up the Hail. Right, I should be fine taking an Earthquake here as long as I don't get crit, so I stay in and hold my breath, and luckily Shepherd takes the hit and is able to bring down the Altaria with a Weather Ball. Next is Skarmory, and thanks to a Citrus Berry, I'm pretty sure I can leave Shepherd in here. So I set up the Sun after taking a Sand Attack, take an Aerial Ace, and then KO with another Weather Ball. Third is Pelipper, who goes down easy to a Thunderbolt from Setter. All that leaves to Winona is Tropius, who thanks to the sun being up is kind of a pain. I decide to send in Corgi to put the dinosaur to sleep, and of course I get crit by a Solar Beam on the switch. Okay, new plan. This time I send in Foxhound, who is able to get off some decent damage with feint attacks while only taking weak Aerial Aces. Foxhound is able to bring the Tropius down low enough to where I know it will heal on the following turn, so I'm safe to switch back into Shepherd. I then get off a Weather Ball that doesn't do much as Tropius sets up the sun for me. That's perfect because I now only have to take another Aerial Ace before one last Weather Ball wins us the match. That fight took slightly longer than I thought it would, just because Winona had some decent counters to a lot of their weaknesses, but we still got through it deathless. Moving on from Winona, a miracle occurs. Our starter finally evolves after getting 6 gym badges. Some Gen 1 Pokemon have some really high evolution levels for some reason. Anyway, we're able to then catch a couple more encounters. We're able to find a couple of birds, a Wingull I named Herder, and a Murkrow I named Bernard. We then have a lot of Team Aqua and Magma stuff to deal with, and it's mostly just long and uninteresting, so let's just skip to our next gym battle. This time we've got to take down Tate and Liza in a double battle. Now I'd like to think I'm half decent at double battles, so let's see how this goes. The twins start with Claydol and Xatu, and I start with Seta and Boston. I can use Boston to bait 2 psychic attacks here, so I switch into Foxhound, who is immune to both attacks. This lets Seta get off the Thunderbolt for the one shot into Xatu as the Claydol psychic goes into Foxhound. Next, the Lunatone comes out, who isn't very scary because it can't attack dark types. I now know that the Claydol will want to Earthquake on the next turn, and the Lunatone can only attack with Psychic into Seta, so I switch Seta out for Bernard and Foxhound out for Herder, meaning I can get both my Pokemon into 3. Once again, I know that Herder will probably bait 2 Psychic attacks, so I switch him back out for Foxhound as Bernard gets a Feint attack off into the Claydol. A Fake Out then stops Claydol doing anything as Bernard gets very close to KOing with another Feint attack. Tate does heal the Claydol with a Hyper Potion on the following turn, but I'm completely safe to double up into the Claydol for a knockout. Then the Solrock comes out, so I once again double up into it, meaning it's only able to get off a sunny day before going down. That just leaves the Lunatone, who literally can't attack my Pokemon, so it's just a case of attacking until I win. Just kind of walked all over that fight. I didn't even take a single hit. Hardest gym fight in the game, my ass. That just leaves one last gym to deal with. Just got to save the world quickly before I can get to that. Am I the only one that finds this cutscene hilarious? Rayquaza comes in like Superman to tell its children to chill the hell out or take a beating. With the world saved, it's time to take on the last gym leader in Hoenn, the water leader who has replaced Wallace. So the last gym leader in Hoenn starts with a Love Disc because, you know, that makes sense. Shockingly, Love Disc just goes down to a single Thunderbolt. Second is Wish Cash, so I switch into Farm Dog on a Rain Dance and then KO with a couple of Needle Arms. Third is Celio, who is able to get off an Aurora Beam into Seta before going down to another Thunderbolt. Crawdont quickly suffers the same fate. All that leaves for this final gym fight then is Kingdra. Thankfully, Seta is pretty well set up to handle this annoying thing, as I can use Shockwave to negate any double teams. Of course, because I actually took the time to prepare for double team spam, Kingdra doesn't use it once. I hate this game. At least Seta is able to take a couple of attacks before KOing with a Thunderbolt. Pretty easy final gym, meaning we've won our 8th and last gym badge. That means it's time to head towards our final challenge of the run, the Elite Four and Champion. I've had a fairly straightforward time getting through the later half of this ROM, but this Elite Four is not going to be easy. Creating a team out of my trash Pokemon was fairly difficult, but I did eventually settle on a team that I hope will see me through. So let's see who we're bringing. I decided on Seta the Electrode, Herder the Pelipper, Greyhound the Minu, Shepherd the Castform, Farm Dog the Catturn, and Boston the Machoke. Let's go see if we can beat this Trashlocke then. Remember to leave a like if you haven't done so already to wish me luck. So first up for this Elite Four is Sydney, who starts with Mightyena, while I start with Seta. Seta is able to start the fight with a Thunderbolt that just misses the KO as Mightyena lands a Sand attack. Sydney does heal on the following turn, but I can play around the accuracy drop with Shockwaves, meaning 2 attacks are enough for our first KO. Second is Shiftry, so I take a turn to set up a light screen while the Ninja Plant starts setting up double teams. Double teams are easily countered by Herder, who can KO with an Aerial Ace after being confused and taking a weak Exosensory. Third is Absol, so I switch back into Seta on a Rock Slide. 2 Thunderbolts are then enough for another KO as Absol wastes its time setting up a Swords Dance. Next is Cacturn, who is easily dispatched by Boston, and then last is Crawdont, who goes down to Seta. That was a pretty easy first fight, only going to get more difficult from here though. Second for this Elite Four is Thebe, who I don't really have a lot of counters counters Thor, so this could get dangerous fast. Phoebe starts with her first Dusclops, as I start with Farm Dog. Farm Dog starts the fight with a feint attack that nearly one-shots before being hit by a Confuse Ray. Confuse Ray does keep Dusclops alive through a few extra turns, but eventually my Cactus is able to KO the first ghost with more feint attacks. Second is Phoebe's second Dusclops, and this one has Earthquake and Ice Beam, meaning it's going to be a pain. Locking it down with Encore though is my best bet, so I switch into Greyhound and then lock the ghost into Ice Beam with Encore. I then send in Setter, hoping to KO quickly with Thunderbolts, but of course I very quickly get frozen instead. What's worse is that Encore ends before Setter is able to break out of the threes, so I'm forced to switch into Herder. Herder is able to do good damage with Surfs, but is hit hard by Rock Slides in response. Eventually the annoying ghost goes down, as Herder is brought to below 50%. Third for Phoebe is Bayonet, so I switch into Farm Dog on a Thunderbolt. A Facade from the ghost then does a lot more than I'm expecting, nearly KOing Farm Dog. Thankfully though, Farm Dog lives and is able to hit back with a feint attack through another KO. Next is Phoebe's second Bayonet, because she clearly has no creativity when it comes to team building. I'm running out of healthy Pokemon at this point though, so I switch into Boston and take a fairly hard Shadow Ball. Bayonet then goes through a Grudge, which lets Boston get off an Earthquake for good damage. Boston then survives the second Shadow Ball, meaning he's able to bring down the ghost with the second Earthquake. I'm very lucky Bayonet went through a Grudge there. I'll be completely honest, for once I don't actually know what a Pokemon move even does. Like, what the fuck is Grudge? Last for Phoebe then is Sableye, and thankfully my one healthy Pokemon can handle this thing pretty easily. I'm able to send out Shepherd, who can KO this stupid ghost with Weather Balls. That fight was definitely a step up from Sydney, and it's only going to ramp up in difficulty from here. Up next is Glacier, whose ice types might actually cause me some problems. Glacier starts with Celio, while I start with Setter. A single Thunderbolt is enough for a one-shot, good start. Second is Glalie, so I switch into Boston on an Icy Wind. Boston is then brought really low by an Ice Beam, but he's able to hit back with a Revenge that one-shots. Next, the Glacier is her second Celio, so I switch back into Setter on a double edge and then KO with another Thunderbolt. Then Glacier's second Glalie comes out, and I have to be careful of Explosion here. I don't think this stupid thing will explode on full HP though, so Setter's the perfect Pokemon to take this thing down. A single Thunderbolt does over 50%, as the Ice type sets up a Hail. I'm then able to get off a second Thunderbolt that's able to finish off the Ice type before it can explode. All that leaves the Glacier is her scariest Pokemon, Walrein. I decide to immediately set up a Light Screen before taking a weak Ice Beam. With Light Screen set up, I feel safe to switch into Greyhound, who takes a hard Body Slam. I'm then able to lock Walrein into Body Slam with Encore before Greyhound takes another hit that leaves him really low. I now don't have to worry about Ice Beams at least, so I can switch into Farm Dog, take a couple of Body Slams, and then KO with a couple of Needle Arms. We won, and that might have seemed straightforward, but we came very close to being swept by Walrein. Still made it through though, and that means we've got one member of this Elite Four to take down, Drake and his dragons. Drake is by far one of the hardest fights in this game, having a team of super powerful dragons. This is not going to be easy then. So Drake starts with Shelgon, and I start with Boston. Boston is able to make quick work of the first dragon with 2 Revenges after taking a Rock Tomb. Second is Altaria, and Boston is able to do good damage with Rock Tombs, but unfortunately I decide it's best to let my fighting type go down here. Rest in peace Boston, may your abs never be forgotten. With Boston down, I'm able to get Setter in damage 3, and then finish off the Cloud Dragon with a Thunderbolt. Next is Flygon, so I switch into Herder on an Earthquake. I then try to get off an Ice Beam that should one-shot, but annoyingly I get outsped, crit, and fully paralyzed. Talk about an unlucky turn. Thankfully, a Citrus Berry brings me out of range of being KO'd, so I go through an Ice Beam again, and I get crit twice in a row. What the fuck, Flygon? At least Herder is then able to connect with an Ice Beam and KO the stupid Flygon. Next is Salamence, who is pretty scary for my team. I'm hoping Greyhound can cripple the dragon though, so I switch in on a Rock Slide that luckily misses. Greyhound is then able to land a Charm. I then lock Salamence into Rock Slide with an Encore. I then switch into Farm Dog, hoping to set up a Leech Seed, but unfortunately Rock Slide crits, KOing my Cactus. This is actually really bad, because Farm Dog was important for the upcoming champion fight. Can't worry about that now though, still got a Salamence to deal with. Thankfully the dragon is still locked into weak Rock Slides, so I can send in Shepherd, set up the Hail, and then KO with a Weather Ball. All that leaves to Drake is Kingdra, so this fight really isn't over. I know Kingdra will start going for Dragon Dances, so I want to lock it down again with Encore. So I switch into Greyhound as the Kingdra starts setting up. Unfortunately, I do get unlucky here because instead of going for Dragon Dance again, Kingdra just goes for a Body Slam, meaning I lose another Pokemon. That's really bad. Now I'm just going to have to hope that Setter can 1v1 this stupid Seahorse. I immediately outspeed and land a Thunderbolt for good damage as the Kingdra sets up another Dragon Dance. Right, need to survive one more hit here and we're through, and Setter survives, meaning he's able to take down the Kingdra. Really made it through that fight just by the skin of our teeth, and now we've got to deal with our final fight of the run, and unfortunately we've only got 3 of our Pokemon remaining. Honestly, the only real key member of my team that I'm worried about not having for this Wallace fight is Tharmdog, but there's no turning back now. Win or lose, it's time to end this run. So Wallace starts with Wailord and I start with Setter. Setter just misses the KO with a single Thunderbolt, but thankfully Wailord just sets up the rain. 2 more Thunderbolts are then enough to take down the whale. Second is Gyarados, who also goes down to a Thunderbolt. Third is Wishcash, and this thing is a massive issue without Tharmdog. I have to hope Herder and Shepherd can do enough to take this stupid thing down without taking too many hits. So Herder is able to get off 2 Surfs that don't do much because the Wishcash keeps increasing its special defense. Because of this, I decide to switch into Shepherd, who takes a hard Surf. I'm then able to get off a return that brings the stupid fish down into the red before taking another Surf. One more return is then enough to take down the smiling arsehole. Fourth is Tentacruel, who immediately comes in and takes down Shepherd with a Sludge Bomb. Rest in peace, Shepherd. Without you, I probably wouldn't have made it past that Wishcash. With Shepherd down, I'm able to send in Setter, who KOs with a single critical hit Thunderbolt. Fifth of Wallace is Ludicolo, and thankfully I've still got Herder as a counter. First I set up a light screen though before switching. Herder is then able to KO with Aerial Aces after taking a few strong Giga Drains. That just leaves Wallace's last Pokemon, Milotic. I do decide it's best to let my Seagull go down here, so I stay in, get off a fly, and then watch as Herder goes down. Right, 1v1, let's hope Setter can pull off a win. So Setter is able to get off a Thunderbolt that does really good damage before being hit by a Toxic. Annoyingly, Setter then just misses the KO by what looks like 1 HP, allowing the Milotic to get off a recover. I realise if I don't land a Thunder here, I might be in danger of Toxic taking Setter down while Milotic spams recover. I need this to land though, and annoyingly, Setter misses and then only survives Toxic and Surf damage thanks to a Citrus Berry. Right, I'm not taking another Surf then, so it all comes down to this. Can we land one final Thunder for the victory? And Setter lands the attack, meaning we've won our Pokemon Trashlocke. Holy hell, that was a close finish. We pulled off a win though, so I hope you guys enjoyed watching that incredibly tense experience. Remember to leave a like if you haven't already, and subscribe so you never miss a video. And if you want to go out of your way to show your support, I do have channel memberships available. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you all next time.